A reading from Luke 10:38-42. At the home of Martha and Mary. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." One of my most vivid memories of when I was young of going to church is the Sharp family. We always sat in the back, but the Sharp family, and that was their real last name, always sat near the front. Mr. Sharp always wore an immaculately pressed suit, and Mrs. Sharp always wore a nice dress with a big hat, a different hat every Sunday, usually with bright feathers sticking out of it. They had 5 kids who were also all dressed up. The boys in pressed slacks. You could have sliced bread with the creases in their pants. The girls in frilly dresses with glossy patent leather Mary Janes. They looked like Madison Avenue's idea of the perfect American family. When they entered the sanctuary, my mom would look at them and then turn to her own family, eyeing my dad, already falling asleep, my brother, who typically couldn't find his belt in the morning and was holding up his pants with one hand, my sister wearing one navy blue shoe and one black shoe, and me with my finger knuckle deep in my nose, going for the gold. Looking at the Sharp family again in all their perfection, she would sigh, "Well, that looks like a lot of work anyway." Who knows how much time the Sharp family spent preparing for those Sunday services? They always received many compliments on their appearance, and they may have gone home after every service and spent the day discussing the content of the morning sermon, but somehow I don't think so. It seemed to me they were confusing devotion with fashion. Were they dressing up for God or for the other people in the church? Now, there are many reasons to go to church. One reason is social, to spend time in fellowship with like-minded people engaged in the worship of God, and that's a very good reason. Another is to support a community as it outreaches to spread the faith, and that is a very good reason. We also come to boost our own faith and seek solace for our troubles, and that's a good reason. But what's the most important reason? What is most necessary? That is the subject of today's short but powerful gospel. Today's gospel reading finds Jesus visiting the house of Martha and Mary. Now, these 2 women are the sisters of Lazarus, whom Jesus will raise from the dead later on in Luke, and they are Jesus' hosts for the evening. Now, imagine, if you can, what it would be like if Jesus was coming for dinner at your house. When I was a kid, my parents would frequently host the entire extended family for holidays, which would kick my mom into high gear days before. Everything would be cleaned, polished, vacuumed, swept, scrubbed, mopped, fluffed, dusted, and straightened. Pies would be made, casseroles cooked, turkeys baked, and vegetables chopped. Decorations were hung and Christmas trees bedecked. And this was just for her brothers and sisters and parents. I can't imagine what would have gone on if Jesus were coming. My mom did all of those things because she loves her family, and she wanted things to be nice. It was her way of showing how happy she was to have them in her home. She wanted her guests to feel comfortable and welcome. But the end result was that she was an anxious, quivering mess when the day actually arrived, and even as a kid, I wondered how much she really got to enjoy the holiday. Martha is in a similar predicament. Jesus is her guest, and while it doesn't say so, I would imagine the disciples are there also. And there's so much to do, so much to prepare. She's scrubbing pots and making bread and preparing the meal, and all of this takes work. Everything has to be done by scratch. She can't just throw a Stouffer's frozen lasagna in the oven. She can't just call Domino's. And this is the time when this sort of work was women's work, so none of the men are going to help her. She has only Mary. And what is Mary doing? Sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him talk? Being no help at all. Martha's patience is at an end with her sister. She tells Jesus, "Make her help me." You get the impression this isn't the first time Mary has shirked her duties, at least in Martha's eyes. But Jesus, always being Jesus, says the unexpected. He says, "No, Mary. Mary is here listening to the word of God, and I won't take that from her." You see, Mary is listening to the word of the Lord, and that is the most important thing. More important than any dinner, more important than any preparation. This is a powerful reminder of why we are here today, to listen to the word, to listen to what Jesus had to say. That is our most important reason for gathering here this and every week, to listen to the word. We need to keep the word our focus. I know I've been guilty of losing that focus. There are plenty of Sundays when I've sat here and my mind has been in other places. I'm thinking of the upcoming week, or the chores left to do at home, or wondering if there will be enough drinks for Celebration Sunday. And these worries are distractions. They lead me away from the word. And what is so tricky is these are valid concerns. These are things that people have to take care of. But they are not what is most important. The word of God and his message for us is always what is paramount. We are a small storefront church. I'm sure there are churches here in Harlingen whose electric bill is bigger than our entire annual budget. There are churches here in Harlingen with television stations and huge auditoriums and concert-worthy sound systems. A couple of weeks ago, we had to rely on a speaker plugged into a laptop. Yes, we are small, but I think that is to our advantage in some ways. We have to rely on the word. We read the word, we project the word, we study the word, and we try to live by the word. Martha wasn't doing anything wrong by preparing a meal for Jesus. Her work was meant to honor Jesus. But she had forgotten one thing. The word of Jesus is more important than any bread, and she had allowed what was unnecessary to get in the way of what was necessary. So even though we are small here at Mount Calvary, especially compared to some churches, we have to remember that as long as we are large in the word, as long as we remember what is necessary, we will be okay. It is such a human thing to do. We oftentimes don't know how to be quiet and stay still and listen for the voice of Jesus in our hearts. We naturally want to prepare to make things nice, and we get impatient with those who don't share our priorities. We are all too human, which is why we need Jesus to remind us of what is important. Here we know the importance of the word, and we strive to embrace its spirit. We fall short because we are human, but we know we must keep trying. The word of Jesus means so much to us. Because of Jesus' words, we know that the meek are the great inheritors. We know that when others turn their back, Jesus steps forward to embrace. We know that Jesus time and time again comforts the outcast, prepares a home for the homeless, and knows that love is love, whatever the form. We know that while our church is small, the word that fills it is mighty, and that God's love is boundless and cannot be contained by walls no matter what their size. We know that Jesus is with us, and we are at his feet waiting for his word. I'm proud to sit at the feet of Jesus with all of you. May his word always be first and foremost in our hearts. Thank you.